Hello there, Internet, and welcome back to my, I'm going to call it a devlog. It's not really a devlog, my cartographer's log, I guess, for the Axiom Verge project, the big composite map project. If you've seen the previous episode, you'll know that I'd spent about 42 hours on the file at this point, starting off from such humble beginnings as this and going through various stages until we got the map filled out, 28.5 hours, changing the details, sorting out the parallax, and we got to here. This is about roughly where I left off, and I've pulled out various bits and pieces. I'm not doing this in Photoshop unless it breaks. I'm doing this in PitchFlex so that I can actually just very quickly and easily go in. So this is the state that the map was in at 42 hours. And I vaguely recall saying I got some areas left to go. We still needed to go and do Mauru, is it? You'll have to forgive me if I can't remember the names properly. We'd also got all of Kur, which I keep on spelling with an I, don't know why, but there's some big rooms that need filling out there. And we got Zai as well. So we've got areas 3, 4 and 9 left to complete. And I said at the end of that video that the first thing that I would probably do is do area 9. Now, because I'd had a fair amount of success with removing parallax and stuff, and because the backgrounds here tile really kind of trickily when you're doing the composite thing, I actually went and removed all the backgrounds for these. I knew that I got so many bits of trace on here anyway. I knew I was going to have to basically redo all of these rooms. So I figured, you know what the hell, it's not a huge amount more time, and it might actually save me time in the long run. So the next version of this that I've got saved is 47 hours. And at that point, I'd been through, and you can actually see this here. The backgrounds look much better because I pinkified them, and then I went through and I re-overlaid the actual kind of background graphics. So we got that done. Some of these rooms were nice and easy because they've already got black backgrounds. It's very easy to take something off a black background, obviously. And I also, you can see the difference here. The final boss room was quite rough on the previous version, but now we've got a much nicer, and it's actually the kind of right shape as well for how it looks on the in-game map. There's a big amount of space off the side that's the right width, because it's the main shaft plus a room either side width. It just doesn't line up like that in-game, so I have lined it up like that. And yeah, I like the final boss room. I realised that these kind of lines here are supposed to represent the glass. I hadn't realised that at all. One of the things that I would like to do, if I can figure out how to do it, is when you get here, there's the big kind of glitchy overlay, but that's all done with shades and stuff, so it's not like I can just pull out files for that. I've actually used those shaders when it comes to the corrupted blocks. I don't know what it would look like on this, but I'm leaving that as is for now. So as you can see, 47 hours versus 42 hours. So it took me 5 hours to do all of Kur. As I said, once I got myself into a flow, it was pretty straightforward. And I actually finished off all of the bits of Kur that needed doing. And this didn't actually take a huge amount of time because by the point that I was doing these rooms, I'd already figured out the parallax stuff. I'd already started figuring out what I'd need to do. There were just some instances of me needing to remove trace from little corners, especially when it was overlaid with this, because it was faster doing it that way than texturing it. And I also redid these rooms. I like these rooms. I like the background of these rooms. They looked really messy, in my opinion, in this version because of how the tubes and stuff work and how the different hearts. Where are they? Yeah, there we go. So you can see how the backgrounds, and I was going to need to remove trace from them anyway, so I may as well do what I could to mess around with the backgrounds. So I actually simplified those quite a lot for the actual map. I removed a lot of the hanging tubes and stuff just so that you could see what was going on, and I think it looks a lot better like that. There's still a few things absent. I mean, this is a boss room, for example. No boss there. But yeah. The Hearts and Vines rooms and stuff like that. Where are they? They're down here, aren't they? These were all redone as well versus the kind of original version. To be honest, they weren't so bad. The bubbles were a bit of a pain in the ass. But yeah, all of the UI was taken out. All of Trace was taken out. Things were lined up properly. And that was 47 hours. And then at 50 hours, if you look at the difference in Xi between those, you can just see some details being changed. So Xi was another tricky zone because, again, it's got a very subtle background, but it's got all of these steam vents and stuff. And again, in order to remove those properly, they were actually a real pain to remove. So Xi got done. It didn't take, again, a huge amount of time because I was in a flow. The stuff that took the longest time was me faffing around with, and you can still see some slight pink glow because obviously they're overlaid onto a pink parallax. I redid the entirety of these rooms because the webbing looked really it looked messy in places, so I redid the entirety of that as well as the backgrounds for the other rooms, sorted out the steam jets, made sure that things were removed. Things like the eggs you'll still see in places, they get removed for the actual final map. But yeah, so you can tell, I mean, Xi isn't a massive zone anyway, but I managed to get all of those pieces done. And that actually brings us to base map complete. That was me saying, yeah, that is a state that I am reasonably happy with. It took me 50 hours to get there, but if I zoom into 1:1, I've now got a pretty decent look at the entire world of Axiom Verge. But there's still some inconsistencies, because in some cases, the screenshots that I took were from the original kind of save file that I started off, and there's some power-ups in there, and every now and again there's a boss in there, there's a boss there, there's a boss up here, and so on and so forth. What can I do about that? Well, I want to make whilst I wanted the enemies off the map, I didn't want the bosses off the map. In fact, I wanted the bosses very much on the map. So the next step took 7 hours, and you can only really notice it subtly with this. You can see Gertab, you can see the bosses spawning in, and you're probably thinking, Demajen, it cannot possibly have taken you 7 hours to put the bosses on. You'll also notice, just in the little room with Elson over here, that little drone enemy. I kind of, and I haven't done this even at the finish point, but I'm kind of wondering whether I should just take Elsinova off and just leave the drone on. I'm unsure about that, even now after I'm kind of done. But yeah, so bosses have been added. So we've got the big slug thing down here, we've got the scorpion, we've got the bee, and so on and so forth. The ones that were missing, but it's like, well, it only really looks like you've made 4 changes between that demo. That cannot have taken you 7 hours. No, that took about 10 minutes. What actually took me 7 hours is let's get ourselves back to the start of the game, and you will see that I went through and I added on all of the items. They're all in with perhaps a pixel or two's leeway, to be fair. They're all in the right places. So all the health nodes, all of the different weapons, the power nodes, the drill, everything item-wise is now on this map. All of the notes are on here. Some of them are still kind of overlaid on top of scenery, and to be fair, some of those are actually hidden behind the scenery. The scenery is not breakable. But yeah, this is what took me a while, and I'm just going to double check this. I just want to highlight this very small, very few subscribers gaming channel, Umaha Gaming. This is old, as far as I'm aware. They've not really been putting out any videos. You know, they did a load of Axiom Verge stuff, and this was super helpful, as you can see, for helping me place the various things. I started off using Solaris 32's complete Axiom Verge item guide. This was really, really useful at starting me off, but actually I only got through Ereboo. Realistically, I got a little bit of the way into Absu and realised that actually there were certain things that this map wasn't doing, or this guide wasn't doing, in order to help me accurately place the items. So I went and found these videos, which it's a proper guide. It shows you the chap getting to the place, opening up the map, then picking up the items, so you can see exactly where the things are. So they were really, really helpful in terms of item placement. But as you can imagine, that took a long time. So yes, all the bosses, all of the items, and any tweaks and so on and so forth that I thought were needed. And that took me up to 57 hours. And it's like, this is looking good. You know, I was happy with this. What else needs doing? And what needed doing was something that it's not that I'd forgotten about. It's that it was like I'd put off. And you can see, this is not a full-size version. This is a shrunk-down version that I was using to keep people apprised of my progress. I went and did the hallucination area. It's going to look a little bit blocky, but it took me a while because the way I did this, obviously the hallucination section is a one and done thing, and if I wanted to actually play through it and take screenshots, I needed to find a way of getting back to it. It's not like it's like 30 minutes into the game or something. If I was a professional speedrunner and could be bothered, I could probably have got here actually quite quickly. But I couldn't be bothered, and I'm not a professional speedrunner. So I started up a new save file with the Konami code on the main menu, which once you put the Konami code on, up, down, left, right, and start a new save file, you get the passcode tool. If you've got the passcode tool straight away, you can open up secret window. If you open up secret window in the passcode tool, then you can put God mode on, you can go to the debug room, you can get all of the items, and you can teleport to wherever you want. So I teleported to the start of Area 6, played my way through the hallucination section, which is very, very cool and very, very faffy. In fact, let's bring up the full-size version of it. I'll talk to you about the what else I've done in a bit. So in the actual game, if you are playing in the legit order, you come into the hallucination section, you come in through here, you can't get up here because you haven't got the tools necessary yet. This is a one-way, until you've actually got the air dash teleport, which you get in this section of the game. You can't get back through there. Well, you can't legitimately get back through there. And you make your way in, and as soon as you get to this room and there's different cutscenes and stuff, you'll notice that there are these, I think they're called bottle caps. on the sprite sheet. They're called bottle caps. Don't know why. I suppose because they... Yeah. You can make your way. This room actually is texturized according to that. I don't know whether you can... I don't think you can legitimately get down here without the trench coats, which you won't have at this point because the trench coat's in the next section. But obviously because I debugged myself into this, I got the trench coats, and I got the red trench coat. And yeah, I just happened to I wondered, well, is that still here? Actually it is. So you can go up and you'll notice that the colours are all over the place. Those of you who've played this section know that it cycles through a filter, and I wasn't going to faff around with making sure that the colours were all the same. In fact, I kind of like the fact that it's all over the place in terms of colour. So yeah, this is the section where you start to... Your head starts messing up and you start bugging out, and it goes up and up and up and up and up and all the way up to the sperm room. I don't know what these things actually are. I think these are the slugs, aren't they? But they're flying or something like that. And then you get the weird grabby nun room. I don't know what they are, but they've always looked like grabbing nuns to me. And then there's the grasping hands room, and none of this is super neat or super tidy or anything like that. And that's fine, because that's kind of the point of it. So that is on there. And the other thing that is on there, and this is technically part of the 57 hours, but I started adding on... I don't think you can actually see it. No, it's not on that one. But I started adding on some rectangles. You can see, and again, I apologise for it being quite tricky to see because this is low resolution, but I started adding on some highlights for pathways that are maybe not quite so obvious. They're marked in green, or the destructible blocks, which are marked on in various places in red. There's also some of the glitch blocks. There's the big ones that you need the address disruptor, the address bomb up there for. There's some more of those elsewhere. There's the yellow that I put on for the passcode locks for various places, the quantum locks I think they're called. So yeah, I started adding on highlighty bits so that you can see how to get through places, because that was something that the original Ultimate Axiom Verge map had done. Let's just pull that up. Yeah, so you can see how he's got things like, oh yeah, he's got the level 1 glitch blocks, and then he's got the level 2 glitch blocks, and then the level 3 glitch blocks, and so on and so forth. He's also put on, or sorry, I say he, they, I don't know, male or female, I don't know, no, they've put on the kind of bubbles and stuff. I did not do that. I didn't think that was necessary. So that was a good time. And I didn't actually use this for much in this section. So I put on a load of those things. And then between... I don't actually know how long this was. This was 57 hours. I think this was around 60. And then I really started going to town with my normal stuff and putting text and icons and bosses and so on and so forth. So this is me turning the map into something usable. This is me making it pretty. So we've got little glitch overlays on various rectangles. We've got icons that were created using the in-game icons, obviously, for the guns, for the notes, the size nodes, power nodes, fragments, all of the bits and pieces to turn this into something that I would actually be able to use as a map. So all of the items, all of the breakable passages to get to those items. The hallucination section obviously didn't take a lot of work because it's very linear in that regard. We've got the kind of green secret passageways that are there, plus the red breakable blocks that are there. it was quite difficult on this version to tell the difference between the green the green passageways and the kind of jadey green coloured glitch blocks. So I added in these little kind of glitch shapes to make that look noticeable. I added subtle drop shadows to things so that they would show up against the kind of very detailed pixel art of the background. And I went through and I added on the names of everything. And I was kind of thinking, you know what? That's probably good enough. And then I went and spoke to some people and say, you've used my maps before. What kind of information, what kind of detail do you find most useful? Do you need all of the, you need X thing to get through here? And of course, in a game like this, where there are some hacks and tricks that you can use to get around, some of those you must have this are actually, it's a very well documented game after a decade. So I ended up just adding on, first of all, a background, because I think it looked nice, adding on my normal branding, adding in the logo. But then I went through there we go. That took a little while to load. Up to 67 hours. So 66 was adding the background. Yeah. Took a while to do that, actually, because it tiled weirdly to start off with. It didn't take me an hour. There's other bits and pieces, little minor things that I've done. And then 67, I went and added in all of the descriptions for the various Metroidvania tools, including what they do, as much detail as I knew. Anything that destroys blocks, like the laser drills, I put that on as well. And that's ended up looking slightly different. You can tell from the kind of glitch blocks down here, the big ones, that I changed the colour slightly to try and make them stand out. Things got moved around ever so slightly. And then that brings us to this. 71 hours. This was, up until a couple of hours ago, the final version. You can see that we've got a key down in the corner. Some things have been ever so slightly moved, but if you look really closely, you'll see that there's a load of dots all over the map. If you look over kind of in this section here, because of course the one thing that I was reticent to do, because I thought it might destroy the aesthetic, was the secret world locations. So the Ultimate Map Guide by, does it actually say Magic of Games Ultimate Map Guide? Kudos to you for your work on this. 2019 this was done, so 6 years ago out of the 10 that the game has been actually out. They'd put on all of the possible secret world entrances, and there's 3 different types of secret world. There's easy ones, of which there are only 2 in your playthrough out of a couple of dozen possible locations that they can spawn. There's 2 medium difficulty ones, again out of a dozen or so places that you can spawn, and there's 1 hard difficulty secret world, again out of a chunk. So I ummed and ahed and tried multiple different ways, and of course, because I'd already got on a load of rectangles for X, Y, and Z in terms of, oh yeah, you need the drill or the drone laser to get through those things, or oh, those are secret pathways, or you've got your glitch blocks, and so on and so forth. I didn't just want to put on more different coloured rectangles. So I ummed and ahed about what to do and how to do it, and in the end I settled on these slightly wibbly Oh no, there's a piece of UI there that I just missed. Oh, I'll go and fix that. As I said in the last episode, there's always a bit just tucked away somewhere that I've missed. Anyway, so yeah, I've got these wibbly shapes using textures basically pulled out from one of the glitch sprite sheets. So you can see the yellow secret worlds. You can see up here the kind of the yellow ones and the medium ones. You've got the hard ones up there, and you've got a load of... No, that's not that. Green ones are mostly down here. Yeah, nice bright green ones. Are they super differentiated from the glitch blocks? No, unfortunately not. But again, there was only so much that I could do in terms of making them stand out. I started off by trying to put little stars in their place or little icons in their place. It just looked naff, frankly. So yes, all of the secret world stuff is on, and then I added on the key as well. So passageways, because I figured the green things, people aren't going to know what they are. Why have you put green lines over everything, Demajen? Passageways, crawl spaces that might not immediately be obvious. Destructible blocks, the quantum locks, corrupted blocks level 2, corrupted blocks level 3, easy, medium and hard difficulty. I made a mistake with this, because there are of course some blocks that you need the address disruptor 1 for, and I've actually marked on a handful of them in this room here, and I've completely forgotten about it. But there are some blocks here that will show up with just the basic address disruptor. So here we have version 1.0.1. I've spent another hour or so this evening, and it's so subtle. It's so subtle that you really are unlikely to be able to tell the difference. I've added in an extra line down here with the corrupted blocks, and in a couple of very subtle places, like there's some here actually in the address disruptor room, there's a couple down here next to one of the notes, there's some in this plant room here, and that's basically it. But there are, I'll put the right version of the map on, there are a few places where you can now use the address disruptor. In fact, you need to use the address disruptor to get out of this room, and I'd completely forgotten about it. Likewise, there's a couple of blocks that you can use to get up to journal page 1. There's a couple of blocks to allow you to get there. I also fixed the location of that because that was off by a handful of pixels for whatever reason. And I just made these slightly brighter, slightly more noticeable, and there we go. That is, for now, the end of my Axiom Verge mapping journey. It's a nice big 16 by 9 map. It's got loads of detail on. It's got all of the items, all of the power-ups, all of the weapons, all of the bosses. It's got almost all of the secret passages marked on. Some aren't very secret. You know, I tried to keep it to things that I thought would help with progression. You know, there are a few level 1 glitch blocks down in Absu, for example, just in the walls, and they do things, but they don't help you get anything. So I tried to be reasonably hands-off in terms of that. Obviously, zoomed out like this, it all looks very crisp and sharp, but actually, if we take a look at 1 for 1, it is, by virtue of the fact that it's quite actually a pretty game with some quite nice artwork, it's turned into a really nice looking map. To the best of my knowledge, nothing has been missed, nothing is wrong, everything should be correct, all the UI should be gone, all versions of trace should have been removed from the map, apart from that one little bit of UI that I saw was recording live, because as I said, that always happens. As far as I know, everything on this map is now here, is now complete. Is there anything else that I would want to do? Technically, yes. If we look back to the Ultimate Axiom Verge map, which, as I said, was very inspirational in terms of what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do things on this, you'll notice that there are subtle grid lines and the rooms do have noticeable outlines. And I have ummed and ahed because I actually started off with grid lines on my map. The problem is that as I tried to fit everything together, things actually get away from the grid a bit as you go, to the extent that Mauru is kind of shifted up by about half in terms of the grids. Same goes for the room boundaries. I really like having clearly delineated room boundaries, but I feel that would it would spoil the aesthetic in some ways. It might make the map more usable, but it will also mean that I need to go through and add a load of room boundaries on. That would not be as simple as just adding a stroke to the outside of each room, because some of these rooms, some of the graphics on the map aren't separated. The later areas are, but the entirety of Ereboo is a single flattened graphic file. There's no individual rooms on here in the actual kind of layers. Pretty much the rest of the zones are, but the early ones isn't. But I don't know. Let me know down below. Would having the room borders on make this look better or worse? I mean, one of the advantages of having a map that is native scale, and as I said, this is native scale. This is created at the scale the game renders. This is 100%. Each room is 480 pixels wide. Well, each grid square is 480 pixels wide. I'm not going to say each room is 480 pixels wide, and I'm not going to say that the rooms align properly to the grid, especially in terms of height. Some of them are a few pixels off, which is one of the reasons why the doors don't necessarily line up properly. Could I have done something about that? Yes. But there were certain ones, like for example that door there, that I just didn't want to mess with. The ones in Indie were the biggest culprits though. They needed fixing because they were wildly off. So yeah, let me know, would room boundaries add to or remove from the usability of this map? But I think essentially that is the Axiom Verge map project done. I've never been a person that has an effusion of pride. Pride has never been my sin. I don't really care that much about stuff, but I am quite proud of this map. It feels like I have been on a real adventure, especially as regards trying to figure out the parallax situations and how I could get things that were overwhelmingly, oh god, how do I do this? You know, surmounting that journey, figuring out about how to mod the game files to remove bits and pieces. It feels like that sense of accomplishment that you get after you complete a Souls game. Realistically, it's yeah, I feel that I've done a decent job, but it's now over to other people. 70 hours on a map for a 15-year-old, no, a 10-year-old game, 2015. It came out. 70 hours worth of work for a game that has already been well documented, well mapped 10 years ago. Would I say this was worth it? Yeah, I'm quite satisfied. It's got me through a week where my heart has been a little bit iffy. I feel like I'm not getting better, but because I've been quite static while doing this, the worst of the issues have been kind of mitigated. It's the exertion, it's getting up and moving around and stuff. And I was really struggling with some of this. Some of the longer sessions that I put in to get this done were quite a strain. That was probably stupid and unhealthy of me. So yeah, this took me on a journey. It took me on a journey of watching back my old Axiom Verge videos. Oh my god, those are awful. Why I put the camera on, why I did the electronic voices for the various Rasalki. I haven't watched every single video because, oh my god, I wouldn't do them that way now. Let's put it that way. But it was my first time playing the game. And I was young and fresh and full of energy. And I think it was it before COVID? Can't remember. Axiom Verge. The map project, quote unquote, completes. Let me know. What do you think? Thank you very much for watching. I hope this little second devlog and first devlog were vaguely enlightening in some way. Axiom Verge. Map. Now available. Stay safe. Stay fabulous. Cheerio. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, why not click the like button and consider subscribing. Remember, you can ring the bell notification icon to get notified when new videos go live. And until next time, cheerio.